Now on the show, we're going to take a look at a movie that's got everybody talking at the moment. The movie is called Back to Black, and it is basically the story of Amy Winehouse's tragic career, I guess is the way to put it. Winehouse was one of those performers that reached the peak of her career before passing away as part of what we nowadays call the 27 Club. Artist that died at the age of 27. Now, this film sees Amy Winehouse played by Marissa Abella, and it tells the tale of how she got a recording contract and what it was like being with her family at the time. Of course, she had her father, Mitch, Eddie Marsan, that she was very close to, but her family was divorced. We learnt that she got a lot of her career off her grandmother, who was also a performer in her own right as well. And it also talks about the toxic kind of relationship that she had with the love of her life, Blake, played by Jack O'Connell. Lee, what did you think of Back to Black as a movie?
Look, it really did expose Amy's life, and I guess not just her stage life, but the behind-the-scenes life as well, which I think is always interesting to see more of the person than the celebrity, if that makes sense. I think during the film there were some things that were really highlighted to me. Amy certainly came across as having a darkness or a dark side, and she actually refers to that as black, and that's in her songs.
Yeah.
So while I'm talking about the movie and how that's written, this is based on her songs, her song lyrics, and the way she lived, and of course there's a lot of photos of her and articles on her of her life because, as we know, paparazzi are relentless, and they've captured a lot of her life as well. But yeah, this darkness and blackness inside her, you just felt for Amy. I felt like she was someone that always knew what she wanted, but she had no compromise either. It was kind of her way or the highway. That's how it came across in this film. And it is a shame that she never got the help she needed when she was younger, because it seemed like she had depression. There was some mental health concerns that could have been addressed, because it later played out in using substances, whether it's alcohol or other drugs. There was that darkness in her that caused her to then use instead of seeking the right help. And of course, in today's day and age, we have a lot more mental help along the way. There's a lot more exposure. You can talk about it more openly. There's resources to access. But I think, if you look at her later years, 2011, there should have been those sorts of things available to her. So I don't know if she just chose not to access that. But,
they wanted her to go to rehab and she said no, no, no.
Yeah, that comes out in the film. But interestingly enough, I didn't know that she actually did end up going to rehab.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I guess was highlighted for me, is that I thought she'd refused rehab her whole life and then had died not having a go at, addressing an alcohol problem or a substance problem. But actually she did give that a go. And so I felt like I learnt more about her than I knew before.
Yeah.
And I think you just leave the film thinking, such a waste. There were so many opportunities, but she was hurt. First of all, I believe, by the divorce of her parents. I don't think she coped with that well. And then, of course, this on-again, off-again relationship of the love of her life. And it pretty much destroyed her that they broke up. But, intertwined within that is the substance issues
and her grandmother's illness.
Her grandmother's illness and death as well. I just feel like the world was at her feet, but she couldn't see it because the darkness was too great.
And she was also a product of, and I feel like I can say this as a music journalist, she was kind of a product of a time where British music was going through a really weird kind of time. And I say that in the best possible way because quite often I love British music over American music. But she would have been a teenager at the same time I was. So she kind of grew up in a time where in America you had Kurt Cobain, who was kind of famous for his drug use, and it was almost like an excusable. Oh, well, he'll have another hit album. It doesn't matter if he's using... and at the same time in Britain, it was the same thing. You had the Gallagher brothers who... I don't know. I don't want to use the word untouchable because they all got in trouble with the law at some point. But you had like the Gallagher brothers who would punch on a plane. Their drinking and drug use was almost celebrated. Like the same with Pete Doherty. You had Pete Doherty. She references him once in the film. So obviously Amy Winehouse was a fan of his. But it was almost like those guys got away with it. So it was like a green light for people like her coming through as well. Not that you should ever blame that behavior on other people, but if you see that amongst your idols kind of thing, then of course you're going to want to kind of copy it. And I think because it was almost seen as a way of coping with the things that she was going through, she found herself in that situation. And early on in this movie, her father goes off at her for using weed, and she's like, well, everyone's doing it. Like, there's nothing wrong with me doing it kind of thing. And I think, because she was an interesting character, because I was well and truly aware of her music, of course, but I'm not a fan of that genre, so I'm not someone that followed her career religiously or bought her albums or anything like that. But I was definitely aware as a music journalist of what was going on with her life and things like that. So I think I learnt a lot about this movie, and I think it's very interesting that Matt Greenhalgh and also director Sam Taylor Johnson were able to do so much with this film, because you do get a feeling that she was kind of an unlikable character. Like, the way she treated her record label and people like that was kind of bad, and it's kind of interesting because she is one of those people, like in real life, where a lot of people in the music industry kind of have bad Amy Winehouse stories. She's not someone that you hear people say, oh yeah, I loved working with her or anything like that. Like, it almost did feel like she was a bit of a problem child, and that comes across in the film. But they still make her likable. Like, even the whole relationship that she has with Blake, you can tell from the get-go that it's going to be toxic. Like, the way they meet in a bar and they're slightly sloshed, and then you learn that he's got a partner, you know that it's not going to be a good relationship for either of them, but you kind of find yourself rooting for them, like, that you hope that it does work because she loves him so much. So, and I thought that those scenes were some of the most powerful of this. The performances of Marissa Abella and Jack O'Connell in those scenes. I thought Eddie Marsan was really good in this as well as her dad. I've loved Eddie Marsan as an actor over the years in a lot of British films, and I think this is another one of those movies where it's like he really steps into his own. But I don't know, I just found those scenes between Marissa Abella and Jack O'Connell were just so powerful. I kept on thinking that's what it would have been like for Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love kind of thing. Like, it was so well performed by those two and so well written. I thought those scenes were some of the most powerful of the entire film.
And I think we need to give real credit to Marissa for her singing in this film.
Yes.
Her portrayal of Amy Winehouse is just amazing. In fact, you kind of forget that it wasn't Amy at times.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like Amy was actually on the screen. And I think, you know, for Marissa to give such a great performance, that credit really needs to be given to her. And Amy had quite a unique voice. So to be able to sing, because Marissa actually did this singing, and she had to train, you know, really in an in-depth way to mimic her voice, to mimic Amy's voice. And I just think she did an amazing job with that.
Yeah.
You know, a natural ability of singing, you have your own style, you have your own voice. To mimic someone else's voice is another level of acting that needs to come in. But yeah, I thought the costume designs were good, as in, you know, getting the right clothing to
capturing her
capture
style. Yeah.
who Amy was, her style. You know, there were times I was like, it feels like I'm in the 70s, not, you know, she was born in the 80s, but, you know, she didn't die until 2011, I think it was, in real life.
Her costumes, like, I found what she was wearing a lot of the times, it reminded me a lot of people like what Bette Midler was wearing in the early days, and name's gone completely. Cyndi Lauper.
Oh, yes.
In a bit as well, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, her style really came out in this movie. You know, their hair design was amazing. You know, getting that beehive that she wore. Yeah, they got all that right. I think it looked really good in to have that in the movie, and to, of course, make it as realistic as possible. So yeah, it did kind of feel like following someone's life in a documentary style, I suppose. But, you know, in that beautiful form of a film where, you know, you see her life played out, you can connect with the character, and really felt for her, even with all her flaws. You really wanted her to succeed and to move beyond that darkness, and you wanted her to find find light and love and joy in life. Not that there weren't moments of that, there were, but it didn't seem to be able to continue for Amy. And so even though you know the ending, because you already know her story, and you know that she's no longer with us, while you're watching the film, you've got this hope that she will find another way, and that it's not true, that she will go on. But yeah, I think this was a great portrayal of her story, and, you know, great dedication. You know, this film is dedicated to her, I guess, and it's respectful of her. It shows who she was, but it's respectful of her.
So what are you going to give this one out of 5, and why?
I'm going to give this 4 out of 5. I just thought that the acting was really unbelievable. To actually feel like you're watching the person and not a character takes a lot, and I felt that in this film. And yeah, I learnt some new things from this film about Amy's life. I like the way it was written and directed.
Yeah, I'm going to give this one 3.5 out of 5. I think they do a really good job making someone who sounds like they were kind of unlikable in real life into a likable character. Very different film that we've seen Sam Taylor Johnson direct. Of course, he's the director most famous for doing 50 Shades of Grey and films like that. So very different for him. But I think the performances of Marissa Abella and Jack O'Connell are what make this film really, really well done. So yeah, I'm going to give this one 3.5 out of 5. Lee gave it 4 out of 5. Back to Black is a general release, so it should be showing in a cinema near you.